Okay, today I've had a lot of questions from friends and there's people that bought solar panels off me and stuff. So I made this little video to enlighten a few people who have never worked per se as a RV service technician or mechanic into some of the finer points. Naturally, it's not freaking rocket science. You can do anything the way you want to do it. But these are a couple of the finer points that I've learned over the years from journeymen that trained me to learn my trade before I was ticketed. And so here we go. I got an old camper here. Now if you buy an old RV and you don't want to spend a lot of money, you're better off to get one that has metal sides and metal roof, if your vehicle can pack it around. As you can see, this is just an import camper, and it's actually pushing the limits of a half-ton truck. Mind you, it's a rather wimpy half-ton truck. That's an old 6.2 diesel, but she won't quit, so I ain't getting rid of her yet. But just a couple of the finer points. The reason why I say metal is you can actually take a camper like this completely apart from the outside in. It can be completely rebuilt. Now, the same holds true for like some of the old Class C's and Class A's. That's an old Mallard, and you know, she's Chevy power, straightforward to work on, metal everything, right? And it's the way to go if you don't have a bay and some elaborate fiberglassing skills. Now, what I'm doing today is I'm restoring a roof, and there's a lot of misconceptions out there about how you go about repairing an RV roof, alright, which is metal, for example. Now, you can see that the guy who owned this before me didn't know what he was doing. He's actually painted the entire freaking roof, alright, but worse, what he's done, which is shown here in this little chunk, let's say, at some point he used black silicone and then he switched to an elastomeric paint. Well, those two don't bond together, and silicone sucks, okay? I never use silicone for anything. Well, on an RV anyway. The only reason you'd want to use silicone is if you were just doing a quick fix that you knew you were gonna redo, or doing a problem area that you want to redo yearly anyway. So when you do a roof, okay, you need to get yourself one of these. It's an oscillating scraper. Okay, this one's a Black & Decker. It's about a couple hundred watts, a couple amps. They're not particularly cheap. That one was on sale for about $67, and it's kind of a cheaper one. It says it does about 20,000 oscillations a minute. Runs at about 2 amps, okay, which is good because, you know, it'll run off an inverter, so you can work on it when you're out camping. You know, sometimes we have a hard time finding time to do this shit. When you redo a roof, you have to go right down to metal, okay, and that's the tough part to do with a hand scraper. So what I've done here is I've started with the oscillating tool and lift the majority of the material off with the oscillating tool, and then I've finished up with a drill with a wire wheel. Now with the oscillating tool, you will find that occasionally you will punch right through the metal if you're not careful. Alright, you can see, I don't know if you can see that, what I have, but you know what, it's not the end of the world as long as the sealant gets in there good, okay, and you keep an eye on it over the years. You're fine. You're gonna save yourself so much freaking time and joint pain by using an oscillating tool that you won't even believe it, okay? And this is a small camper, but it's a big job. You start doing a bigger one. Now this is a restoration. Keep in mind, if the products that were on the roof were good, I could just scrape them back a little bit and clean them up, and that'd be okay. If it was just elastomeric, because this combination of silicone and elastomeric and just big gaudy heaps of the shit, No, it's not going to suffice. Now, when you do a roof vent, you don't use elastomeric. Now, in the case of this is a roof vent going to fiberglass, actually, because this bubbles fiberglass. So again, I want to clean it right down to nothing, and then I'm going to use Proflex, all right, to do my final seal. And make sure you seal the actual screw heads as well, okay. And when you make sure that you have the butyl tape in behind, okay. And you can ask me some questions about butyl tape. There's two kinds. There's some arguments out there that the one kind has to be used for metal roof, whereas the other kind can be used for both rubber and metal roofs. But I don't know. I like the higher quality, greasier, darker gray stuff myself. The other shit just kind of dries out and it's not real good. Okay, now there's a lot of elastomeric products like out here, like see, you see this or other shit on Canadian Tire. They're pretty much all fucking garbage, alright? They're thin and they're like paint. When you buy a real elastomeric product, and when you open up the can, it should look like cookie dough, alright? And this is the only shit you want to use, because for starters it goes a lot further, but it's the real deal. And it says right on the can, do not spread this stuff more than 1/8 of an inch thick, or your warranty is non-existent. Okay, so the idea is not to go thick, the idea is to use a good product and go thin. Now, when you're working on seals like this, on the side of the vehicle, okay, you're not going to use a roof seal product like elastomeric. You're going to use this, Proflex, okay? It is not silicone. It has a lot more glue in it than silicone. And there's a trick to using this product. For one, you have to do a lot of preparation, because once you open this up, chances are when you do your best to reseal it, it's going to dry up in the tube, okay? So you want to prepare a large portion of area to do before you open up your tube. And ultimately what that means is you want to put your RV under a cover, because it's going to fucking rain before you get enough prepared, before you're able to use the whole tube of this stuff. And that's the dilemma that you're going to find with that situation, okay? Now this you're going to get from a glazier. It's a very hard, some kind of acrylic scraper, alright? But it does not damage paint jobs, yet you can get the stuff out. And what you want to do is you want to clean that right up until it's actually a divot, okay? And so there's nothing but the butyl exposed behind. Once you have it at that point, there's a number of things you can use to clean the seal as a preparation before you use the Proflex. Varsol can be used as an initial clean, but it leaves a residue as well, alright? Enamel reducer is very good. Gun wash is very good. Isopropyl alcohol is very good too, but it's not very strong. But it all depends, all comes down to how worried you are about the paint job of your RV. You see, now in this situation you can see I'm not worried about it, okay? It's aluminum, and if it's exposed, I'm okay, right? Now if you're working with a fiberglass RV, you're gonna have to be a lot more careful, right? And that's why you want to have a plastic scraper to scrape all the old junk out, all right? And then with a fiberglass RV, you're going to use isopropyl alcohol, and only sparingly in the area where you have to, you will use something like gun wash or enamel reducer, something that's very, very strong. Now when you're actually cleaning it, you want to take an edge like this, you see, and then dip it with your solvent, and then work that tool only in the area where it's needed. In other words, don't slop the shit all over the place. Just work the tool in and clean the area that needs to be done, right? Now you can see if you don't clean the area really well, what happens is this. You see that? See where that wasn't cleaned properly? My sealant is actually lifting away from the metal, okay? And you can see that probably, hopefully. Anyway, yeah, so that's what you do. Now the trick to actually using the Proflex is you get yourself a small little cup, about yay big, alright? and you put white hand soap in it, a lot, like a couple of ounces of white hand soap, and then just a tiniest bit of water. Have yourself a couple of rags, okay? Now, when you cut the tip off of your Proflex, cut it very, very small. You just want a small amount of Proflex coming out of this thing. Cut it as close to the end as you can and still have it revealed, open. You lay in a very, very tiny bead, okay? With the tool, with your gun. You dip your finger in the soapy water. Get it nice and soapy. Take your finger and run and push the sealant into the crack. Wipe your hand on a rag, dip it into the soapy water again, and then come back and lift in the opposite direction with your fingernail. Lift out all of the excess, and that's how you'll get a nice, you can see how I don't have any real excess, right? Now in an area like this, technically speaking, if looks were important, okay, this should have been done with clear. Anywhere where you can't match, you use clear. If it's purely white and you're going for a match, like a lot of the new moldings are white and then white fiberglass, well then you use white, okay? But don't forget about that soapy water trick, because what happens if you don't do that is your hands get so fucking sticky that you can't work with the stuff, okay? And that's how it's done. Okay, so getting back to the metal roof thing, all right? Getting back to the metal roof thing, you can see I've got this totally clean, all right down to bare metal. All right, so now then I'm gonna take my acrylic enamel reducer, or something that just basically dissipates and it's gone, right? And clean that up before I do the seal. And then when I'm done, it's gonna look like this over here. Okay, you can see I haven't worried about using much more than I need to. And I hope that's coming out, because it's really difficult for me to see on this LCD screen. I hope you can see what's going on here. All right, you can see that it's not thick, right? Now this is a good product. It's hard, but not too hard, and it's not too soft. It's just right. Now if there's areas, I don't know if you can see that, there's a tiny little air pocket at the end of my finger. Areas like that, you come back, you clean it up a bit, and you add a tiny bit more. But the idea here is to be minimalistic, okay? Because this product works good when it's thin, but if it's too thick, it can flake off, right? And then in the future, when you come back, you'll just do minor touch-ups to where you've been, right? And it's not such a big, huge freaking ordeal. Now, the other thing is when you start on a roof, start on your most troublesome areas. Have a look at it one day and see where the water collects, okay? Because those are the areas that are going to need the repair attention the soonest. The other areas that are very important are your leading edges on your front side, okay? Because now in this case, it's an old school one where they went with angles and actually cut the fittings, but with the new ones where it's rounded and molded, they're subject to torsion and whatnot, and they often fail at those seals. The other area that's really bad is that front window. You can see how that top window isn't even properly sealed with any sealant right now. It's amazing that it doesn't leak like a sieve. Okay, so getting back to this. The only other thing I want to add to this video is unrelated to roof repair, but related to specialized tools that you want to have. Now that soap trick is really important for one. Okay, compressed air is handy. Heng's roof coat, totally essential. You know, don't buy anything else, trust me. I've tried everything. I've tried thousands of dollars worth of different products, and this is the shit. That's what you want. Proflex is what you want. A lot of people say, oh, Proflex, it's so hard to come off and it's so hard to work with. Learn how to work with it and use less of it, then it won't need to come off. Okay. The other thing is, when you're working on a hot water tank, okay, number one thing that people do is they fire up the electric portion of their hot water tank when it's dry. Well, you're going to fry the element, okay? And when you do, it's difficult to get out on an Atwood or a Suburban. So what you need is an 1.5 inch socket, like this, 3/4, it's not a 1/2 inch tool, okay? And then you need to take it and you need to bevel, see if I can get that. You need to bevel the sides down such that it's thin enough that it will go in there and grab onto that heating element and come out, and that's the trick, okay? And it's really, you know, pretty straightforward stuff. And the heating elements are essentially the exact same as you would have in your home, as long as it's the right length. And they're both, you know, no big deal if the RV one was 1440 watts and this one's 1500 watts or whatever, you know, as long as it's really close. You know, you're in business, right? You don't necessarily have to spend $36 on an element if you can get one for 12 that looks and feels exactly the same and has nearly exactly the same specs. It's just an electric frickin' heating element. Don't worry about it. Okay, so there's some RV tips for you. Try to share some finer points of how you do things a little bit better. Thanks for watching. Take care.